Welcome to the Leadership is Female podcast. Michelle Simkin, Director of Marketing, Brand Creative, and Customer Experience at Titan Brands. We are so happy to have you today. Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Yes, so thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I've listened to a lot of your other podcasts and have found everyone that you've talked to so far to be very inspiring and great females in the leadership space. So I want to thank you for everything that you're doing and having me on today. So I really appreciate that. So like you said, I currently lead the marketing team on the brand and creative side here at Titan Brands. Um, and I think probably the main company that you've heard of that's under Titan Brands is Titan Fitness, which is an e-commerce company where we sell all different types of fitness equipment, from power racks to benches, bumper plates, barbells, anything you would need for whether it's a professional gym, working out outside, or building out your own home gym. So I lead the brand and creative strategy and then also the customer experience, including customer service.
All right. How did you get there?
Yeah. So sometimes I wake up and ask myself the same question because this is never where I thought I would be. I actually went to school as a graphic designer. I learned, I think a lot of things through my time in school, not only about design, but also about how to take constructive criticism, how to present. And then also, I think one of the main things I learned in school for design is really just how to keep pushing yourself further when you think good is just enough. So I remember there were a lot of times where I would, be happy with something that I designed and think, okay, it's time to quit. And then I would have someone that I would consider a mentor that was one of my teachers push me further and say, this is good, Michelle, but you need to keep pushing because there's a better idea out there. And I think I've carried that along with me throughout my career. But after college, I ended up working at an ad agency, and I was there for about 14 years and absolutely loved it. I worked as a creative director there, worked on a lot of different brands, got to do different things. I had a mentor there that actually was, I would consider, one of my best friends, and he was my boss. And we worked together for a good 14 years. And then all of a sudden, he didn't show up to work one day and found out that he had passed away from a heart attack. Yeah. And so I was just like, well, like, what do I do now? I had this mentor that was like, I thought he knew like my future and was going to guide me there. And I had never really thought about like, where am I going to be? So when that happened, I was just kind of like, well, shit. And then a couple months later, my mom passed away too. So I had these two people in my life that I felt knew me better than I knew myself. And so I kind of found myself in this space where I didn't really know what to do or where I was supposed to go. So I left and went to work for a Fortune 500 company in-house and was just, kind of took the back seat and was like, if I try to write this out and just like stay behind the scenes and try not to make waves, like I can get through this. And what I realized was if you avoid dealing with things for 3 years, it's very bad for your mental health. So I actually found myself surrounded by a lot of really great people at this Fortune 500 company. Again, my boss there, who was, someone new that I was able to look up to. I talked to him and was telling him that I was, like really struggling, and he was extremely supportive through that portion of my career. And so I took a month off and decided to work on my mental health, which I think was something that a lot of people probably don't talk about, but and I don't know if it's looked down upon or not, but I want to, like, when I was thinking about how to answer this question today, I was like, do I tell the like rosy story of how I got here, or do I just be honest and say, like, it's been a struggle, and so I hope that someone can listen to this and like take a lot from it. that it's okay to struggle and that you can eventually get to be successful in your career and step up as a leader, even if you do struggle at some point in your life. And so got through that. It's still tough, as you can see. But I came back to work after I took a break for a month. And I was, the boss that I had at the time was just so supportive. And I actually came back, and I came back stronger and even better and able to hit the ground running. And I moved up very quickly after that at the Fortune 500 company. And then there was a leadership change. I decided to look for different opportunities. This one came up at Titan Brands, which seemed extremely exciting because it was a very fast growing company. We sell a lot of really cool products. It's 4 different brands. I really enjoy being in the fitness space, and I knew that there was a lot of potential with this company. And so I made the change to be basically lead the creative team at Titan. And within 2 years, the CEO here, Austin Speck, he, I would say, recognized my potential very quickly. And he's someone too that if you give him 100%, he'll give you 200%. And he will take the time to coach you. And there's a lot of things that I struggle with personally when it comes to my career. And it goes back to, losing 2 people that were very close to me and not knowing like what my path was. And so with that, I also struggle with like confidence. And I'm sure like everyone that's listening probably also struggles with imposter syndrome as well. And so he's been very helpful in, one, helping me see my potential, and then 2, just like really pushing me outside my comfort zone. And that's, I think, when I look back at my journey, the one thing that sticks out to me is that I have surrounded myself with like really great people. I had my mentor at the ad agency. I found this really supportive person at the Fortune 500 company that supported me through my getting back on track with my mental health. And then here at Titan, Austin is just also extremely supportive and is really good at pushing me to do things I've never done before. And I would, I, I think that I don't want to discount what I've done for my career, but I've also think that surrounding myself with really, really special people has helped me get to where I am today. Yeah.
Well, okay. First, sending you a huge hug through the Zoom. And I'm so grateful that you shared that level of vulnerability, because I think that's where we connect and where we all become humans in this journey of really our whole life. Career is a big part of it, but we're humans going through it. So thanks for talking about it. I know that is not easy at all. I lost my mom too, and I still cannot get to the end of the sentence without my eyes welling up with tears. So I feel you there, and it's all part of our journey. And certainly the people that you collect as mentors along the way is what helps you and propels you to succeed. And I want to say that they don't help and they don't propel you to succeed unless they see something amazing inside of you. And you have that. And when I was preparing for today's interview, I was looking about you online and the things that you've done. And there's all these glowing personal reviews about you as a person. And one of them said, Michelle is a one-of-a-kind creative leader, able to think conceptually, create award-winning design, ensure all creative aligns with the business goals, and cultivate teams of direct reports and agency partners. And I just thought that was so generous of that person to write, but it was one of many. And it's clear that you are excellent in what you do. And you're a graphic designer by degree, but you now manage brand, creative, and customer experience at Titan Brands. So how much of your tactical skills from college do you use versus the creativity and management skills that you've honed over your career?
Yes. So I had always thought that because I went to school to be a designer, I would always be a designer, right? And as I've gone through the years of being a designer, what I've realized is that you pick up a lot of skills along the way that is not just like these tactical skills or skills that you may learn in college. And one thing that Austin, I think, has helped me really see is that the skills that leadership, evokes and has and needs to be successful, it's not like what you learn in college. It's everything you learn along the way. So anyone that's a good leader should really be able to do anything, right? So I should be able to step in any sort of role and pick it up, because really what I need to do is just help craft the vision and then get people moving towards that same vision, while also developing people underneath you and being mentors to other people. And so it's funny because I've had people along the way that tell me, you're just a designer, you just don't necessarily need to have a voice in this conversation. I've had people say, I'm not reporting into her because she is just a designer. Um, for people that know that I went to school to do design, which is okay. Like at this point, I feel like I've heard that so much that I also used to put myself in a box, but Austin's really pushed me to see that you can step outside the box and do anything if you just have the drive and motivation to do it. And so he was actually like, Michelle, I want you to take on customer service. And I was like, no, you don't. And he was like, yes, I do. And I was like, okay, okay, I can do this. And I mean, he even said the same thing. He said, basically, like, you have all these skills to be able to do it. Just because you're creative and you worry about being good with numbers or being good with analytics doesn't mean you can't do something. It means that you surround yourself and lean on those that are good at the things you're not good at, while you lean into the things that you're good at, which may be leading a team, or it may be design, or it may be um, being able to put yourself in the customer's shoes and say, what is this person experiencing, so I can make the journey much easier for them. And so I think that has helped me get to where I am today. I think that I used to always put myself in a box because a lot of people did that also. And so for anyone listening, don't put yourself in a box. You're capable of doing anything. Skills apply across the board. Um, and if you've got people telling you can't do something, surround yourself with those that are telling you that you can.
So we've heard a lot about the other voices in your industry and in your sort of sphere of influence help to develop you as a leader. What were the keys to developing your management skills? And can you lay out 3 pieces of advice to help our listeners develop their management skills, or maybe rethink where they're at with their management skills?
Yes. Okay, so I actually have 4 because I was thinking about this last night. So the first one I think is, read as much as you possibly can. Um, I have learned so much from reading all these different books, and I apply that every single day. One book that I think has been really helpful for me is called Surrounded by Idiots. It teaches you, it kind of breaks people up into 4 different colors, right? And each color is very different. Um, and it kind of tells you like how to interact with each of those different types of people, and also how people view you. And I think if you are able to get a better understanding of the different types of people that are in this world and the different types of people that you're managing and how people may view how you're sending emails or reacting to things, or just like having a normal conversation, then you're going to be much more effective as a manager. Does that make sense?
100%. And one of the things and tools that I've used in my management skills is personality tests,
Yes.
and getting a better understanding of that individual and maybe the way they think, and we're all unique, it's not going to be the same as me, has been a game changer, complete game changer.
Yeah, totally agree. Which personality test do you use?
So several different ones. There's been the Enneagram, there's been the DISC, there's a free one online. I don't remember if it's 36 personalities or 37 personalities. The number is obscure, but if you Google anything with a number close to that and personalities, it'll come up.
Yeah.
And it's this really cool assessment, and it essentially gives you an archetype as a person and like how you would be represented. It almost feels like in the world or in a play that you would play this type of role on the team. And then it goes on to just describe like the way you would interact with other team members or how you might view an assignment. So that one has been really eye-opening as well. I honestly don't think you can go wrong, because just the act of sharing and doing the assessment just shows that you're curious and that you want to find a better way to work together. And I think that's just a great place to start as a manager.
I would agree with that. So for me, the second thing is really pulling from your past experiences. So I know that we've all had managers that have done things that we absolutely hate. And that's great, because that means you know what not to do. And so make sure that you're learning from that and incorporating that into your management style so you know what not to do. And then same thing with managers from the past or people that have been mentors to you, what have you enjoyed from that? Where did you really benefit? And then apply that as well. Which I think sounds like common sense, but I had someone tell me once, just because someone is running a department one way and you take it over doesn't mean you have to run it the same way. You find your own management style, know what you enjoyed in the past, what you didn't enjoy, and then see what works for you. I would say the third thing is making sure you're listening. So I know that you had the 7 Habits book listed on your reading list. And so I think it's, I don't remember which habit this one was, maybe habit 6, but seek first to understand, then be understood. And so I think it's really important to give people your undivided attention, sit there and listen, make sure you're really hearing what they're saying, and don't be listening so that you can respond, listen to just really understand. And then the fourth one, so for what I found very helpful is I have this professional development worksheet that I use that I like to have my direct reports fill out. So it's different than like a performance review. It's not really telling someone how they've been performing, but it's really outlining to them what it will take to get to where they want to go. And so what they do is they write down or they identify, what they may want to do in the future. So if I'm a designer right now and I want to be a creative manager, I would put down creative manager. And then I would write down everything that I think I need to work on. And so I've had people before say like presentation skills, or maybe it's like brainstorming or concepting, which for me is really helpful because I may not identify that, but them telling me that they feel like that's where they're weak, then I can work that in where it's like we may be presenting or we may be working on some project that necessarily we may not present, but then I could have that person get in front of a small group and present so that we can work through their skills. And then at the bottom, you have this tracker, and it's split down into 70, 20, 10. And it's supposed to be 70% is on the job training, 20% is coaches and mentors, and 10% is formal education. And then underneath that, they keep track of everything that they've done on the job that's helping them build their skills they need to get to that next level. And then in the middle portion, the mentor portion, you can work with them to help identify people that you may want to pair them with, even if it's someone at another company that they can go grab lunch with or have a Zoom call or a Teams meeting with. And then the formal education is helpful too, because you can, choose a conference or put books down that you recommend for them. And I found this to be really helpful, mainly because helps pull things out of the employee that I don't think normally comes up in just like an organic conversation. And then you're able to really track along with what they've been doing to help get there.
That is so good and so thoughtful in your leadership, that professional development worksheet. I love that. And then what is the best part about it is like the measurement tool, the 70-20-10.
Yeah.
Like you can set a goal, but if you don't have a pathway to achieve, like you're never going to get there. You'll just be wandering. So the way that you help them concentrate is amazing.
I feel like too, now the younger generation, when they come in, they just, I think they just want to do all these fun conferences, and they think that that's, how they're going to level up, or I don't know. So this also helps to say, 70% of what you need to get to the next level really is going to be like what you're doing on the job. This really will take you to the next level. And yes, these conferences and, classes are very important, but so is on the job training.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's really bringing the focus very, very intelligently, like back to the company and the job that they took and committed to doing with excellence is where you start. And then you're going to help them in these ancillary areas of mentorship and education, which maybe one fun conference fits in the formal education bucket because that's only 10%. But, borrowing a book from a colleague like can also check that box to help you to improve in those areas.
Right, exactly.
So good. And let's talk a little more about Titan Brands and one of your partners, Spartan Races. What are the key elements to first entering into this partnership and second, executing an effective partnership that leverages and really highlights both Spartan alongside Titan?
Yes, so we are very excited to be partnering with Spartan. So for me, the number one thing when looking at who to partner with and different partners is that we've got to make sure that both of the brands align. And when you look at Spartan and you look at Titan, there's a lot of synergies. So we both stand for achieving goals, defying expectations, conquering doubt, overcoming obstacles, and just overall improving well-being. And so it just, for Spartan and Titan to come together, it's just a very natural fit. And so when you've got a partner like that, where both of your missions and values align, it kind of seems like a no-brainer. And then from there, when it comes to executing on the partnership, I think the most important thing is one, being able to collaborate, because Spartan's ultimately going to know what is going to work for them, and we know what works for us. And so when our brains come together, we're just able to make a bigger impact. And then two, everyone speaking just very directly, and having very clear communication is important too. I think both of our companies are, probably very quickly growing, and so we move very quickly. And so I just being clear and direct and being able to move fast and pivot where we need to, I think is very important. I will say too, Paige at Spartan has been amazing. And so she, to me, has made this partnership so much fun. I don't know if you've had her on the podcast yet, but she's wonderful. She's a badass. She's extremely organized, very direct, very clear with her communication. And so it's really been so much fun working with her and seeing everything that we've been able to do together, from the race day and seeing Titan, incorporated in race day, to the digital platforms and our Instagram. So it's been a lot of fun. I think both communities have benefited a lot from it.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Paige for
Yeah.
sure. You
Yes.
so organized, so detailed, and so spot on. She is
The best.
amazing. She has a nickname that maybe I shouldn't say it on the
I need
podcast.
to know it.
Perfect Paige.
I love that.
And she was one day she's like, perfect Paige forgot her coffee, like, because she's so dialed, right?
Yeah.
She's so prepared, and she can be way too hard on herself when she makes like literally one teeny tiny non even marking mistake, like forgetting her coffee. So yeah, she's amazing, and shout out to her and Women Supporting Women, because she connected the two of us. So
She did. And I have never seen Paige make a mistake. So I'm gonna have to keep my eye out for that one.
I have assured her time and time again that if and when she finally does make a mistake, like it will be so minute, she will probably be the only one who notices, and all will still be right in the world.
Exactly.
All right. What are some of the biggest trends in brand and creative right now that our listeners must know about?
Yes. So I don't know if this is new, but I have started seeing a much different focus when it comes to how people are presenting their brands. And so I think it's less about um, really trying to push products through, these luxury brands, and more about connecting emotionally with customers and building the brand that way. So there's this one book, it's Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Um, and it lays out, basically how to build a story brand. And what you do is you have a character, which is your customer. You present them with what their problem is, so what they need to solve, and then you introduce your business as basically the guide in the story. And then you say, this is how the guide can help you with your problem, and you present the solutions and how the brand can help with the solutions. And then you show them what their life could look like after the guide, who's the business, steps in. And then they're, basically the hero in the story, the customer is. And so we're actually working on launching a new brand soon that's outside of the fitness space, but we're using this approach. And it actually has been a lot of fun to work on because it tells a really nice story, and it really helps set up a brand, I think, for a more like emotional connection and lifestyle feel versus just focusing on pushing products.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of building a story brand with, it's probably top secret what you're doing next, but like one of the current brands of Titan?
Oh man, okay. So I feel like I should have planned for this. I don't want to give you the one I'm working on now. I feel like I need a second with that one.
Yeah, no problem. Um, let's go on a little different pathway here and talk about the passion you have for helping animals and how you help nonprofits by utilizing your unique skill set.
Yes. So when I was young and starting out in my career, I didn't necessarily have a lot of money to donate to organizations that I felt really strongly about. And so there was actually this one time where I found a dog on the street, because they're everywhere here in Memphis. We have a lot of stray pit bulls. And this one rescue group let me bring the pit bull to their adoption day, and the pit bull actually got adopted. And I had been to different rescue groups, and no one would let me bring the pit bull to adoption day because it was a pit bull. And so to show, my gratitude towards them letting me come when they have all these other dogs that need to be adopted, but they let me come and sit with this one that I had found. I saw their business card and I was like, I would really love to redesign your card and logo, which I think at first they were a little offended because they were I think they created it, right? But they had used Curl's font. I don't know if you know which font that is, but not acceptable. And so they let me do it. And when they finally saw it, they were very excited. And since then, it's turned into a bigger brand. And now I think it's actually recognizable, probably worldwide. I've had a few people call me that live in different states that will say, I traveled to Australia and saw someone wearing the Street Dog Foundation hoodie, which to me means a lot because I wasn't able to necessarily donate a lot of money, but I was able to donate skill and time. And that I think went even further than money could have. There was another time too I volunteered for AARDA, which is for autoimmune disease awareness. And my mom had been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and I felt like I needed to do something to help. And so I contacted them and told them I was a designer and wanted to see if there was anything I could do. And I ended up, they were like, yes, we need so much help. I did a nationwide campaign for them to spread awareness. I had an ad featured in Times Square, which was exciting. I helped start the first ever autoimmune walks to help spread awareness that way too. And then even as simple as building out a slide deck for them to go in front of Congress and ask for money for research. And then I ended up seeing my name as one of the highest in-kind sponsors one year. And I was so confused by that because I was like, I've really just donated my design skills and like the time it took to do that, but somehow that made me one of the highest donors. And it just made me realize that all of these organizations out there that are nonprofit can benefit from any skill that you have, whether it's design or project management, or I don't even now social, like they need probably help running social channels or whatever it is you're good at, even if it's just volunteering your time. I think that can go further than money can.
I love all of that so much. And look at what your heart of service, like the way that paid you back, an ad in Times Square, a
Yeah.
globally recognized brand, one of the highest in-kind donors for an organization. And you didn't do it for any of the accolades. You did it out of service. And that's what happens. It pays you back immeasurably. And big thank you from me as well, helping out the pit bulls of the world. I had the greatest pit bull. His name was Buckaroo. He unfortunately passed away last summer, but man, that dog was the biggest lap dog that you've ever met. So sweet. And he's honestly the best dog I've ever owned. And it's funny, he looked the part, like he looked like scary sometimes to people. And I'm like, that dog has been chased down by a chihuahua on the beach. Like he would not hurt a fly. Anyway, I have a huge soft spot in my heart for that breed. And that's so misunderstood and so incredibly loving and can give so much to a family. So thank you for doing that.
Yes. And it sounds like he lived his best life if he's on a beach.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did live his best life. We literally adopted him out of like a junkyard. He was living in a car. And so the only thing he wanted for the rest of his life was to be comfortable. So any like pillow on the ground or like soft bed, he was in his happy place and lived happily with us for 8 years. He's so wonderful.
I love that.
So what do you advise for somebody who wants to just start thinking more creatively, realize creativity has really no definition. It could apply to any area of your life, but where do we start if we feel a little stuck in moving or thinking in one direction? How do we get more creative?
Yeah, so I think the best thing you can do is get in a room with other people and just start brainstorming. Whenever I feel stuck or anyone on our team feels stuck, we just we'll pull someone else in, and it's like, let's start talking through ideas. Let's throw out all the bad ideas, because all the bad ideas will lead to a good idea, and start getting the creative juices flowing and inspiration. And then I think for me personally, like my brain just keeps going after that. I just need someone sometimes to bounce ideas off of, or just start talking about something silly, and then that turns into something really cool. And so I think that that's really important. And for me, that's the best way to help with your creativity.
Such a great reminder too, after the really weird last couple of years we've had, not being able to be in those groups and be in person, that a lot of the best work comes from working together as a community.
Yeah, I would agree. What do you do to get to feel more creative?
So it's a combination of things. I think it's both sides of the coin. It's the group piece. I love the group piece of working with other people who all have different strengths and bring this diversity of ideas and life experiences, because it's so easy to fall into a focus group of one where it's all what you think
Mhm.
based on your own experience. I think that is super, super important to get creative in that manner. And then following that, I've got to get really quiet. Like I've got to let my brain just process all that I've heard. And I think that the brain can do a lot for you in idle time. Like all that you have taken in, it'll keep working on in the background. And then when I come back to it, I feel much more clear in the direction, and I can put my fingers to the keyboard or pen to paper and it flows, versus when I maybe started the project, I was literally frozen because I didn't know where to start.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about your hometown. And we talked about it before I hit record. You've been in Memphis since, well, college for sure, but you grew up there too.
Yeah. I
And
have, yeah.
so what do you think makes Memphis so special? And then what is the best place to eat?
So I personally have not been able to leave Memphis, one, because of the food. And I do think that makes Memphis extremely special. We can talk about that in a second. Two, I always thought I was going to leave Memphis, but then I got to the point where family to me was really important, and my family's here, and that's not something that I want to leave right now. And then also, I don't know if many people know this, but the affordability in Memphis is just crazy. So like my house here, it's probably, an apartment, a very small apartment somewhere else. And so um, that has something to do with it too. And then I also feel like Memphis is a very creative city. Justin Timberlake came from here, BB King, Elvis, um, all these, not just musicians, but we have a lot of really cool like murals here in Memphis, and I think like street art is picking up, and the food scene is picking up, and I think people here just really vibe off of the culture and being creative and just trying to be a little disruptive, and that's what I really love about Memphis. Um, and then when it comes to food, I can eat a rack of ribs in like 2 minutes. It's my favorite thing to eat. So barbecue. And then I know we were talking earlier, but the fact that you can go to a restaurant and sit down and order a vegetable plate with mac and cheese, mashed potatoes, and fried okra means everything to me.
I just feel like, so I visited Memphis before, so I'm not completely speaking totally out of turn, but I feel like that embodies Memphis,
Yeah.
like mac and cheese, maybe some collard greens, fried okra, some potatoes, and it's the veggies, right? Totally. Yeah.
Mac and cheese is the veggie.
And that put mac and cheese on a whole different plane for me when I visited Memphis like over 10 years ago. I like now mac and cheese is so mainstream, but I guess this was in 2010. So it's like 12 years ago. Now mac and cheese is mainstream. Back then it was not.
Yeah.
But man, when I had it in Memphis, it was like next level because I was only really thinking about like what came in the blue box, not about the amazing flavor you could create from that delicious food.
Yes, agreed.
All right. Well, this has been so fun to connect with you, and the way that you speak and your journey has just been incredible. So we've got final 4 questions for you. What advice do you have for women that they can apply today to level up tomorrow?
Yes, love that question. So I think I know I talked about imposter syndrome a little bit earlier. And every woman listening to this needs to read the book, The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women. Very enlightening, and I think helps give you a different perspective of how to approach your career and how to think about yourself. But so for me, like my main advice is don't compare yourself to anyone else. I think a lot of women in the book, they had this one example where, and I know imposter syndrome can creep into anyone. It's not just women, it's men and women, and really everyone probably experiences this at some point. But in the book, they had this example where there's a coach in a locker room and there's a team of men's soccer players, and the coach calls them in the locker room and he's like, we're really going to have to start training harder because we have a few people that are really out of shape on the team. So the men are going to look around and think it's everyone else except themselves, right? And then the coach could say the exact same thing to women's players, and all of the women are going to think like the coach is talking about me, not anyone else. And when I heard that story, it really resonated because I don't necessarily think, like, well, I do. I compare myself a lot to other people that I'm in the same room with. And I've got to remember that when men are at the table, they're not internalizing this stuff. They're not saying, oh, well, I may be the problem. And so when I'm also in the room with a bunch of people, I think about that scenario and I say, 1, don't internalize this. And 2, don't compare yourself to anyone else because, the men in the room may not be doing that. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my God, that is such a great example. The locker room.
I know. I think about that all the time. And I'm like, it's so right. Because if I'm sitting in a room and they're like, we've been missing goal, I'm like, well, this is my fault, When
That is wild. That
yeah,
is one of the best ways I've heard the differences in the way we think
yeah.
described.
And so I know
good.
you're gonna ask me my favorite quote later, which I'll add another one in, but I have one that relates to this. But it's basically confidence is not walking into a room and thinking you're better than everyone. It's walking in and not having to compare yourself to anyone at all. And to me, that really resonates because I'll sit here, sometimes and compare myself to my male coworkers and think like there's a difference, but in reality, I shouldn't be comparing myself to anyone and just know that like I'm great for who I am and I've got really important things I can lean on.
Yeah, it also reminded me of a quote I heard earlier this week that I had not heard before. And the one that I had heard was comparison is the thief of joy. But this woman said comparison is the thief of self.
Yes.
And that hit like such a bomb to
Yeah.
me. And yeah, it's
It does.
all intertwined, but it's so true that you've got your own secret sauce and you need to use it and let that shine.
Yes.
Okay, where are you traveling to next?
I'm going to Paris. I know.
Amazing.
Excited. Yeah. I've never been. I've
When?
never been in my my best friend was like, hey, we should go to Paris. And so I was like, how about September? So now we're going.
I love that.
I'm pumped. And then also here at Titan, there's like Q4 is huge because of Black Friday and Cyber Monday and all that. So this is going to be my one last big break before we got to hit the ground running.
Yeah. Well, my husband he's been to Paris. I have not. And he told me the best crepes he had were right in front of the Eiffel Tower at a little stand. So I don't know if it's still there, but let me know.
I will. I will for sure. I love crepes. I'm so excited.
All right. What is your pump up song?
I've got two. One is Boss Bitch by Doja Cat. And then the other one is The Show Must Go On by the one and only Freddie. Both of those get me very pumped.
I love it. Okay. And then finally, what is your favorite quote?
So I have one that is, let me find it. Okay. Surround yourself with the dreamers and the doers, the believers and thinkers, but most of all, surround yourself with those who see greatness within you, even when you don't see it yourself.
You know what, Michelle, that really wraps up this episode so beautifully and so full circle. And I just can't thank you enough for sharing your voice and your talents and your lessons with us on the Leadership is Female podcast.
Thank you for having me. And if anyone listening wants to talk more about their mental health journey or want someone to talk through it with, I'm more than happy to listen.
Generous to the core. Michelle Simkin, everyone, Director of Marketing, Brand Creative and Customer Experience at Titan Brands. Nothing but the best wishes for you in the future. And I know success always follows a bright light like yours.
Thank you.